Welcome to video number 2 on the topic of group by. Today we're going to do the deep dive in group by operations. We're going to learn how do we group by a datetime column. We're also going to learn how to create our own user-defined functions and then pass them to the group by function. And we're going to learn how to do double group bys, and I'm also going to connect the dots here again with visualization how double group by operation is connected to the bar plot in Seaborn when you're adding in a hue. Then we're also going to learn how we can use double group by together with unstack to basically get the pivot table, and we have lots of other stuff to cover, so let's get started. Right, here we are. Let's import the libraries. We got pandas. Matplotlib. And Seaborn. And this is the online sales dataset that we're using again. For you who did not watch the previous video, we have orders in this dataset, so from online sales, but the invoice is not one row, so we'll have one product from one given invoice on one row, one product, and the quantity can vary as we can see here. And we have description of the product, we have the invoice date, we have unit price, customer IDs, and the country from which the order was placed. So let's have a look at the info method. So we can see that the invoice date is an object column, and we're gonna need to change that data type into datetime format. So I'll say PD to datetime, and then I'll pass this thing here. Boom. Mission accomplished. All right, now I'm going to show you something I find very cool. This is called the PD grouper. Grouper. So the PD grouper, what it does is that it allows us to group date time columns. Right? So if you have a column which is called months, and then you have just like April, May, things like that, then you can easily group by that column. But if you have dates like we have here, then you can't really group by them if it's just an invoice date over like it's basically a time series column. But with grouper you can. But first I'll show you how it would look if you were trying to just group by this column in the straightforward way as we group by other columns. So we'll say invoice date, and then I'll say quantity. And I'll say count. So this is not really the result that we want to get. We're not really interested in seeing how many orders we got in the 1st of December at 8:45. Like, that's not really interesting, but we would need some more meaningful categories to group by. So what I would need to do is that I will say group by, but now I'm passing pd.grouper here, and I'm saying key is equal to invoice date. So I'm passing this column to this function here. And then what I get to do here is that I get to select a frequency. So if I want to have a look at the monthly sales, I can do that. And let's say I want to get the quantity again. And let's get the sum this time instead. So if I run that, you can see that I'm getting the data on a monthly basis instead, which is really, really nice. That's what I wanted to. We can also say MS here to get the monthly start. We can see here now it's on the end of each month. We can get the first of each month also if we find that more suiting. We can also get the quarterly also. And all of these things here goes with an S as well for start. So quarterly start, quarterly like this. You can also pass a, like if your quarter starts in February, you can also change that to say QFeb. You can also have it on a weekly basis, of course. See how sales are going for the weeks and so on. So this grouper function is really good if you have a datetime column that you want to group by. This would be the most efficient way. Alright, and next up is about how you can create your own functions for group by operations. So sometimes the aggregation methods that we have in pandas are not enough. Then what we want to do is that we want to create our own user-defined functions to solve some sort of problem. And for example, if we look at this data frame, what we have here is the quantity and the unit price. And by multiplying them, we're going to get the sales price, or how much did they actually pay us, right? So this is not a function that we have in pandas. So what we can do is that we can create it on our own and then pass it to the apply function. So I'm going to create a user-defined function here. I'm going to call it calculate revenue, and it's going to take one argument, and the revenue is going to be equal to the quantity multiplied by the unit price like this, and sum that. And then what I will do is that I will say return revenue. Alright, this is the function. What I can do now is that I'll say group by country, and then I'm going to say apply here, and I'm gonna just simply pass calculate revenue here. And this might be confusing to some people, but when we're passing a user-defined function to the apply method, we don't want to do parentheses like this at the end and say x or something. We don't want to do that. We just simply put the name of the function and we run it. So here we can see the revenue for each country. How much revenue does each country bring into our company? You can also sort the values, ascending equals false. You can see Netherlands, Germany, and France. Okay, so this is a user-defined function. We don't have to pass a user-defined function here to the apply method. We can also create a lambda function, so I'll show you how to do that with a lambda function as well. We're going to do the same problem. It goes something like this. So group by country, and then I'll simply say apply, and then here I initiate my lambda function. So I'm saying lambda of x, and then basically I just need this logic here, boom, and I can also sort this here if I want to at the end, but here I'm just getting the same thing. So if you're more comfortable using user-defined functions, go ahead. If you're lazy and think it's quicker to write a lambda function, go for that. I'm moving on to the next topic here, which is about selecting several columns in a group by. Alright, so this is a pretty straightforward concept. So we can say group by country again, and then we can say quantity and unit price like this, and then maybe I want to get the median. So you have to pass a list when you're selecting more than one column. If it's only one like this, then it's okay to pass it as a string. However, when we're passing more than one column, we need to pass a list of strings always. Like this. So if we want to, we can select more than one columns and look at the quantity and the unit price for each country simultaneously. Alright, so that's very straightforward. What we can do also is that we could try to select every column like this, group by, and then we don't say anything. And if we say sum, for example, now I'll get an error message here saying you can't use datetime, does not support sum operations. So that means that we're gonna have to say numeric only here equals true. So now we're only getting the numerical columns. Alright, now what if we want to select these two columns, but we want to look at different aggregations for each column? Can we do that? Yes, we can do that with the help of a method called ag. Alright, so with the ag method we can apply as many aggregation functions as we want to each group in a group by operation. So this can give us some valuable insights. Let me just copy and paste this little code here. So I'm going to say ag, then what I'll do is that I'll pass a list and I'll say median, boom. So I can pass a list of all the aggregation functions that I want to include here. So now I'll get a mean and a median for each column here. So doing this actually gives us a valuable insight. So when the average unit price is almost twice as high as the median unit price for the same category, it means that the data is skewed to the right, with some high values pulling the mean up. The median is a better measure of central tendency for skew data because it's not affected by outliers, and the mean on the other hand is sensitive to extreme values and can be heavily influenced by outliers. So if you want to understand the overall distribution of your data, then it's important to look at both the mean and the median, and if you were to neglect one of them, that could lead to biased perceptions of the data and incorrect conclusions or decisions being made. So if you're in the boardroom presenting for management, this can be a good thing to keep in mind. And I would also say that this is also something that's especially true when we're dealing with data that relates to money or sales, which is almost never normally distributed. So that's why the ag method is useful. And yeah, we have basically, we can put in any type of function here. We have the mean, median, we have sum, we have min, we have max, standard deviation, variance. You can also have the first and the last value of each group, so it's just going to give us the first or the last value of each group. We can also get the count and the size. So these are the aggregation functions that we have, and you can put them all inside of a list here. And well, finally, the last thing that we could do here, if we have this code here, is that we can pass a dictionary here. And then if we pass a dictionary, what we need to do is that we need to take the column that we're selecting for the group by operation as a key, and then the values should be a list of strings, and the strings should be the aggregation functions that you want to apply to that specific column. So here I want to do the count, I want to do the average, the median, and that's good. And for the unit price, I want the average, I want the median, but I would also like to get the sum. I misspelled median here, and here we have the results. So now I'm getting different aggregation functions for different columns. Alright, moving on to a more interesting, exciting topic. Now we're going to talk about double group by operations. So double group by operations are very interesting because they are very closely related to the bar plot when you pass the hue. So you could say these two things are the two sides of the same coin. Double group by and SNS bar plot with hue are two sides of the same coin. Right, now I'm actually going to need a different data set for this one. Right, so for this I'll need a new data set. You'll find the link in the description. So we have vending machine sales here. We have the location of the vending machine. We have the name of the machine. We have a product for each machine, category for each product, and we have a price, quantity, line total, and trans total, so transaction total. Alright, let's have a look at the info method just so we understand the data better. We have some missing values, very few of them, shouldn't be a problem. So now back to the double group by operation here. Double group by means that we're going to select two columns inside of the group by method. So we're going to create even more categories. So we have location and let's do category. Okay, and I would like to look at the trans total here. So trans total, and the sum is what I'm interested in here. So here what I'm getting is that I'll get one. First I have these four outer categories, which is a location for the machines. We have machines in 4 different locations, and then I am going to get, for each location I'm going to get 4 categories. So carbonated products and their transaction totals for this location, but I will also get the transaction total for food, non-carbonated, and water for this location, right? So that's how it works basically. And now to the interesting part. This thing is the same as a bar plot, and let me show you how. So data is equal to df, x is equal to location, and y is equal to trans total, right? So x, the location, so that's this one, and then trans total is going to be equal to y. Then I'll say error bar is equal to false because I don't like error bars in my bar plots, and estimator sum, so this is the function that we're passing. It should be the same as this one if you want to achieve the same thing. And then finally category, how do we fit that in here? Well, what we need to do is that we have to say hue. So hue is equal to category. If I run it, I get an error. That's very disappointing. Error bar none. Now it works. So Brunswick, I get it here, and then I get 4 bars for each category of food, and I also get a beautiful little engine up here in the top left corner. Alright, now if we're using this, if you looked at this, I'm not really a fan of how this looks. So double group by, when we're doing double group by, it always yields a messy index here. That's not very easy to read. So when we're doing double group by operations, what I would recommend you to do is to use it together with a method called unstack. So unstack is going to change it and pivot this format into something which is more easy to interpret. So I'm gonna say unstack here, boom, and now it's a lot easier to format, because what the unstack method does, if we go back and look at it, is that it takes the inner index here and turns the inner index to columns. Right? And since we had carbonated 4 times here for each of these, it's just going to appear once as one column, because we're bringing it up to column level instead of index, making the whole format much more interpretable. So I'm actually going to take this here and I'm going to call it sales. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to plot it in a heat map. So heat maps are great for double group by operations when you're using unstack. And basically what you do is that you say sales, and then what you want to say is not true, and you also want to set the format to no decimal points. So here what we do get now is a color coded output of this, which I think is preferable always, especially if you're adding it into a presentation, over this output, because here the color is going to guide the eye towards the highest and the lowest points. Alright, that was it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, subscribe to this channel because I'm gonna upload some more content for you all.